The next thing I want to do is plumb in the power steering. That would be the pump in the box. I also have to find a place to mount a remote reservoir. This is a reservoir off the G8. I'd like to try to use it. I'm thinking of mounting it up here. The reservoir and bracket are off the G8, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this portion of the bracket off and just use this, which is where the bottle goes. And then I'll make an L bracket that'll screw underneath here and fasten to the core support. Here's the portion of the bracket I'm going to use. That's where I cut the other piece off. The holes on the bottom of this bracket are really close to the size for a 3/8 16 national course thread. So I'm going to go ahead and thread those, and then I'll have something to attach the bracket to. I happen to have this piece of scrap shelving angle. I'm going to try to make the bracket out of that. So here's that L bracket I put on the bottom. I will have to trim off these screws that's it, bolted in. A couple of bolts here down the side. There's the bracket all painted up, and then with the tank on. There we go. On the pump, the pressure side, which is this one here, is a 16 millimeter by 1.5 millimeter thread pitch. That goes to the pressure side of the box, which is down here, which is an 18 millimeter by 1.5, and then the return is another 16 millimeter by 1.5, obviously all metric. And these are O-ring type of adapters. Here are the fittings. These are the 16 millimeter ones, and then this is the 18 millimeter, and you can see the O-ring on here. I got these from Jegs. I think they're actually Earl brand, but these will get a way to get a hose onto those fittings. On this side, they're all 6AN fittings. For the pressure side, it takes a special high pressure hose. So this is Earl's high pressure hose. This is their cheapest stuff, which is cloth. You can get the braided steel also. And for fittings, this end goes onto the hose. But I didn't know what I was going to need to make this all fit. So what I did was I bought two of everything, because I only have one pressure line, so I just need two ends. But I didn't know if I would need 45s, 90s, or 120s. So I bought two of everything, and I'll return what I don't need. These are Earl's also. Next step is to take the fittings, make sure your O-ring's on there, and basically wind them into the hole and tighten them down. After some trial fitting, it looks like two 90 degrees are going to do it. And this is not the right hose, but just for an example. And the hose will go like that. I think is the best way. There'll be enough slack in there for flex when the motor moves. This power steering hose has like a braided steel sheath to it, so you can't just use regular cutters to cut it. You have to use a hacksaw. I've seen some people use a cutoff wheel, which seems to work pretty good, so that's what I'm going to use. It makes a really nice cut. It kind of melts the sheath a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of trim that. These power steering connectors are actually two pieces. You take off this outer nut, and the hose goes in here, and then this and the hose goes on here as a combination. This outer nut actually has like left-handed threads that hold on to the hose. So what you do is you put the hose in here, and you push in and turn like it's a left-handed thread and wind it in till the hose bottoms out. Okay, it feels like it's seated. Because when you wind the hose in there, it compresses it a little bit. They show online a reamer to put in here. I don't have a reamer. I do have this big file. So I'm just going to put the file in here and just kind of ream out the end of that tube so that it's not compressed. To say to put some lube on this, I'm going to use some WD-40, something thin. And these are basically right-hand threads. I saw online that you put a piece of tape on the hose so that you can tell if it's getting pushed out as you screw this on. Okay, that's bottomed out. So that nut that's on the hose is bottomed out against the fitting, and you can see from the tape that the hose didn't back out, so this should be a good connection. There it is. Yeah, those ends came out nice. Let's see how it fits. Just a pressure line in place. I probably could have made it a little bit shorter, but I also kind of needed to clear where the filter is for the intake, because it's kind of coming in right here. So now, time to put in the low pressure lines, which are these two, and down on the box. I've run the other hoses. Again, these are low pressure hoses. So this, the larger one goes from here to the tube that comes off the power steering pump, and then the smaller one goes to the outlet of the box. I fastened them down here to the fender well. There was already a hole there, and again the intake will come in here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the belt and the intake on, and let's see how it all looks. Here it is with the belt on. Everything clears the belt fine, and then that's the intake. I think that's the way I want to run the intake. I could run it on top of those lines if I want, but I like the idea of running the filter lower to try to maybe pick up some cold air from down lower here through the grill and stuff. So I filled up the remote reservoir for the power steering. So I'm now going to try to prime the system by turning the wheels left to right and see if the box will suck in the fluid. That's to the left. That's to the right. And you can see the fluid going down, so it's sucking it into the box. A little hard to see, but the level is right down to here, so I'm going to now fill it back up and keep turning the wheels. I turned them back and forth, I think 4 or 5 times. So I turned the wheel back and forth probably 20 times. It seemed to stop sucking in fluid. I had to top it off twice. I left it at kind of the in-between safe zone. Should be good enough to start. Spinning the pump didn't do anything, so I've got the system filled, I think, about as much as I can get it filled.